Howdy, all you cowpokes and polecats and rootin' tootin' rascals. Today's gonna be a special off the cuff, and it's gonna take place in the Old West. That's where I'm from. Now you might be thinking, what in tarnation do Cuss have in common with the Old West? Well, I reckon you're just gonna have to hang out here at the old bunkhouse to find out what's what. So get yourself some bacon, some beans, and some coffee, and sit right down there on that dark couch and enjoy the show. Hey, time for another edition of Off the Cuff. And on this one, I have a very special item to show you. It's a pair of leg irons. Now, these aren't the fake ones like I explained in a previous video. These are the real ones. And I showed you these in a video about how to recognize fakes as a comparison with the ones that are reproductions. Now, these have a very interesting backstory. The reason I completely trust it is because of the source. See, I got these from an antique dealer who was about to retire and move to the South. She knew that I collected handcuffs and leg irons and things like that, you know, and over the years I'd bought a few items from her here and there. Then I didn't see her for a while, and she came back to the antique flea market with these and told me that she was retiring and that she thought that these belonged in my collection, which was really cool. Now, these, as the story goes, were taken off the body of a guy named Big Nose George Parrott, who was a bank robber in the Old West. And when she sold these to me, I didn't really know who George Parrott was. And she included this tag, which I'll show you a close-up of, and it's signed by the coroner. The story is that these leg irons were taken off of his corpse after the townspeople strung him up from a telegraph pole. Now, don't take my word for it. By all means, Google it. I'll wait. Very exciting story that I'm sure you just looked up as to him robbing trains and, you know, being a famous outlaw and riding with gangs and all that kind of thing in the 1870s. When he was captured, he managed to break out of the leg irons that he was in, and he used them as a weapon to hit the guard over the head, and he actually fractured his skull. The guard's wife was bringing in the food. She managed to grab a shotgun or a gun of some sort and forced Big Nose George back into his cell, and that's when the townspeople came in and basically just strung him up. Now, his story didn't end there, and no, because what happened was, eventually, his skull was, shall we say, separated, and the top of his skull was used as an ashtray on the car desk, the one who signed this, and his skin from his chest was cut off and made into a pair of shoes. And a politician actually wore those shoes made out of George's skin to his own inauguration. I think that was around in 1893. The leg irons that George escaped from are actually in the display next to the shoes made out of his skin in Wyoming. So how did these come into the picture? Well, it kind of makes sense that after he broke the other ones, he somehow filed them, and they are a pair of Towers leg irons, by the way. If you Google it, you can see the picture of them. The theory is that after he broke out of them and then he was locked back in the cell, some townsfolk posing as lawmen came into the jail, and they basically took him out and hung him. So it would make sense that they would put another pair of leg irons on him, especially a pair that were known to be used in chain gangs and that you could walk in with the extra long chain. And also, remember, jails at the time would use different types of restraints. So yeah, they might have had a pair of Towers leg irons and also some Darby's laying around. Now these don't have a maker's mark, and you'll see the close-up, but they are authentic. The weight of the key, the weight of the steel, the overall construction, the quality of these things is absolutely right for the period. And when I researched this lady, she's pretty interesting. She used his skull as her ashtray. Well, she cut the top off, and you can see the skull in the display, like I said. I think she smoked cigars, and she was a real tough frontierswoman who was also the coroner. In the 1880s, that was unusual, but she was a character. Let me tell you, research this lady. It says here, Big Nose George tried to escape, and sheriff wife captured him. The sheriff put leg irons on George. About 12 o'clock, a mob broke in and hung George to telegraph pole. These are the leg irons. Also, his remains were shoved into a pickle barrel. They not only have his skull, they have his death mask, so you can actually see what he looked like, in addition to the photographs in the wanted post. So think about it. These leg irons were actually taken off the corpse of a Wild West outlaw. Pretty cool. Several people I know are kind of creeped out by them, but not me. To me, I think they're extra cool. That actually adds to, you know, the overall appeal of the cuffs, especially with the provenance that I have. And I like these so much that when I did my very first jail escape, these were one of the cuffs that they locked me in, and of course, they kept the key. And I escaped from these, a bunch of other leg irons and handcuffs like this. By the way, you can look up a lot of videos about this guy on YouTube, and you can also find a lot of information when you Google him. When I did the jail escape, I gave each of the reporters and witnesses a packet of information, a folder, and it had a list of the restraints. It had the Big Nose George story and photographs of me and all that kind of thing in the show that I was promoting. These are really cool cuffs, and I'm really proud to own them. And it was really neat to me, the fact that an antique dealer who's been around so long that she was ready to retire thought enough about my collection to say that she wanted me to have them. And she gave them to me for, I think I paid like $100 for them. It was like nothing, but the gesture is what counted. But I was very honored to add these to my collection. And I keep them in the drawer with the tag. That's the tag that was on them. I just wish that I knew the manufacturer of these. Unfortunately, with the lock shows this year being canceled, I couldn't bring them to ask any of my friends in the handcuff community. You actually have to hold them and see them in person to appreciate the craftsmanship and the fact that these are not the reproductions that are flooding the market. The difference in weight is amazing. The ring is unbelievably thicker than the ones you see on the reproductions. The key's better, the locking mechanism's better, the hinges are tight, there's no gaps, no spaces. These are cuffs from that time period. I think that until I get myself a pair of Houdini cuffs, if anyone out there wants to part with a pair, that these will be the ones with the coolest story that I have so far. Function just like regular Darby's, which I'm sure you've seen before on my channel and in other places. The number 57 is stamped there and also on the key. So this is definitely the key that went with these leg irons. It's made out of the same type of steel. The patina is the same. Everything on these things just screams authentic and freaking cool. It just goes to show that a cool and provable story with the proper provenance can take an otherwise ordinary, moderately valued pair of shackles or cuffs, in this case leg irons, and just boost them right into the stratosphere if you have the right story. And with the research I've done, and please, by all means, Google this guy. Google Big Nose George Parrott. You won't be disappointed. He's got a heck of a story, and you might have seen documentaries on him on the History Channel and, like the different Discovery, whatever. I know that I've seen a few Wild West shows that have had his story. I must admit that when I did see the pictures in the museum of the Towers leg irons, it made me wonder until I realized and read further that he had destroyed those cuffs in the escape attempt. And it would just make sense that, if a prisoner escapes from a pair of handcuffs, what do? They slap another pair on it immediately. So it's perfectly logical, it's plausible that these leg irons, because of this, that these leg irons were taken off of the corpse of a hanged outlaw. So if you have any cuffs with an interesting story like that, please, by all means, leave it in the comment section. Make sure you click like, make sure you click subscribe if you haven't already, and we will see you again next time.